Welcome to the 5-Minute Murder podcast from 5minutemurder.com, where every week we take a look at a murder, a murderer, a serial killer, or an assassination in about 5 minutes. Episode 9: The Assassination of Julius Caesar. The assassination of Julius Caesar on the Ides of March in 44 BC is one of the most significant events in the history of the Roman Republic, an act that not only brought about the death of one of Rome's greatest leaders, but also marked the beginning of the end for the Republic itself. This murder, carried out by a group of senators who claimed to be acting in defense of the Republic's traditional values, ultimately unleashed a series of civil wars that would culminate in the rise of the Roman Empire. Julius Caesar was born in 100 BC into the patrician Julii family, which traced its lineage back to Aeneas, the Trojan hero. Despite his noble heritage, Caesar's family was not particularly wealthy, and his early years were marked by political turmoil as the Roman Republic was riven by factional conflicts. Caesar's rise to power began in earnest in the 60s BC, as he allied himself with prominent figures such as Pompey the Great and Crassus, forming what became known as the First Triumvirate. This political alliance allowed Caesar to secure the consulship in 59 BC, and from there he embarked on a series of military campaigns that would establish him as one of Rome's most successful generals. Caesar's conquest of Gaul, which he completed in 51 BC, brought him immense wealth and popularity, but it also made him a target for his political rivals. The Senate, dominated by conservative factions known as the Optimates, viewed Caesar with suspicion and feared his growing power. The relationship between Caesar and the Senate deteriorated further when, in 49 BC, Caesar crossed the Rubicon River with his army, an act of defiance that signaled the start of a civil war between Caesar and the forces loyal to the Senate, led by Pompey. Caesar's swift victory in the civil war and his subsequent appointment as dictator for life in 44 BC alarmed many senators, who believed that Caesar was seeking to establish himself as a monarch, thereby destroying the Republic's cherished traditions of shared power and senatorial authority. The idea of kingship was deeply unpopular in Rome, where memories of the city's early history, dominated by tyrannical kings, had led to a deep-seated aversion to any form of autocratic rule. Caesar, despite his protestations that he had no intention of becoming king, began to accumulate honours and powers that suggested otherwise. Among these honours was the title of Dictator Perpetuo, or Dictator for Life, which Caesar accepted in February 44 BC. This title, along with other signs of Caesar's growing dominance, such as his portrait appearing on coins and his assumption of the role of Pontifex Maximus, or chief priest, convinced many senators that Caesar intended to crown himself king. Their fears were further stoked by Caesar's decision to wear a laurel crown at public events, a symbol traditionally associated with monarchy, and by his apparent reluctance to reject the crown offered to him by Mark Antony during the Lupercalia festival. A group of senators, led by Gaius Cassius Longinus and Marcus Junius Brutus, began to conspire against Caesar. Brutus, in particular, was a complex figure. He had been a supporter of Pompey during the Civil War, but had been pardoned by Caesar and welcomed into his inner circle. Despite this, Brutus was also a staunch defender of the Republic's ideals, and he saw Caesar's actions as a betrayal of those principles. Cassius, who had also fought against Caesar in the Civil War, was driven more by personal animosity and jealousy of Caesar's power. The conspirators, numbering around 60, decided that Caesar's assassination was the only way to save the Republic. They chose the Ides of March, a date that corresponded to the 15th of March in the Roman calendar, for the deed, as Caesar was scheduled to attend a session of the Senate at the Theatre of Pompey. The location was symbolic, as it was Pompey's theatre, a reminder of Caesar's vanquished rival, and the Senate House itself was undergoing renovations at the time. On the morning of the Ides of March, Caesar was warned by a soothsayer to "Beware the Ides of March," a warning that he reportedly dismissed. He also received several other warnings, including a note detailing the plot, which he did not read. Despite feeling unwell, Caesar was persuaded to attend the Senate by his friend Decimus Brutus, who was also one of the conspirators. As Caesar entered the Senate chamber, he was surrounded by the conspirators, who pretended to petition him for the recall of a banished relative. At a given signal, the senators drew their daggers and attacked Caesar. Casca was the first to strike, stabbing Caesar in the neck, but it was Brutus's participation that shocked Caesar the most. According to tradition, Caesar's last words were, "Et tu, Brute?" "And you, Brutus?" expressing his sense of betrayal. However, some historians doubt the authenticity of this famous phrase, as it was popularized by William Shakespeare in his play Julius Caesar. Caesar was stabbed 23 times, and he collapsed at the base of Pompey's statue, a final irony that underscored the connection between Caesar's murder and the earlier conflict with Pompey. The conspirators, believing that they had saved the Republic, declared that they had struck down a tyrant and that the people of Rome would rejoice at the restoration of liberty. However, the reality was far different. The assassination of Julius Caesar did not lead to the restoration of the Republic. Instead, it plunged Rome into a series of civil wars that would ultimately destroy the Republic and pave the way for the rise of the Roman Empire. The public reaction to Caesar's death was one of shock and outrage, and the conspirators found themselves increasingly isolated. Mark Antony, Caesar's loyal supporter, seized control of the situation, delivering a powerful funeral oration that turned the people against the assassins. The crowd, inflamed by Antony's speech, rioted and drove the conspirators out of the city. The power struggle that followed Caesar's assassination eventually led to the rise of Octavian, Caesar's adopted heir, who, after defeating Antony and Cleopatra, became the first Roman emperor under the name Augustus. The Roman Republic, which had endured for nearly 5 centuries, was gone, replaced by an imperial system that would last for another 500 years. The assassination of Julius Caesar remains a pivotal moment in history, a stark reminder of the dangers of political ambition and the fragility of republican institutions. Caesar's death, far from saving the Republic, served as the catalyst for its transformation into an empire, a legacy that has shaped the course of Western civilization for millennia. I hope you enjoyed that episode of the 5-Minute Murder podcast from 5minutemurder.com. If you get a chance, please leave a review wherever you get your podcasts, as it will help us to grow. Also, why not check out our other 5-minute podcasts, 5-Minute Biographies, 5-Minute History, and 5-Minute Mysteries. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next week.